Thanks for coming. My name is Ellen. I know most of you. I'm going to do a talk today on the topic of volition. And you may or may not know what that means at this point. It's really about how you accomplish the things in your life that you're really excited about and up to and committed to. But before I start, I was hoping I could talk you into doing a little exercise. So if you have a notebook or a phone memo pad, or Charlotte's got some pads and pens, we're going to just do a couple of journaling questions. So just run around, Charlotte. Not very many people have notebooks. So I think there probably are fewer pens than there are notebooks. So if you want something to write on, raise your hand. And just for those of you in the room, you might notice normally we're freezing in here, and today it's a little bit warmer. So our air conditioner decided to take a day of rest. So if you get too hot and you need to strip down to your tidy whities, we'll try to keep you off camera. So otherwise we'll just be a little bit warm. Okay, so a few questions. Otherwise, you have to have a good, Sarah would like one back there too, if you have any more left. Oh, and Eli, can't forget Eli. All right, here's the first question. Think of one or more activities or set of activities, a new habit, something else that you've wanted to take on for some time but haven't managed to initiate. So some new activity, some initiative, a new habit, something you've really wanted to have in your life or take on, but you just haven't been able to kick it off. So take a minute and think of something and write it down. Oh, okay. Something that you really wish you could do in your life and you haven't been able to do yet. Some activity, new hobby, some good well-being step, something that you'd like to have in your life and you haven't yet been able to manage having it in your life. Is there anyone that would like more time on that question? Okay, second question. Think of something you've aspired to take on that you've started, but you've not actually completed. Like you know, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds and I started, but I didn't actually ever lose 10 pounds. Or I wish I could go for walks every day, and then you do it for 3 days and then you drop off. So something you've started, but not actually been able to complete like you had hoped. See if you can think of one or more of those and write those down. Maybe it has to do with sitting meditation, something like that. I hope you're doing this online too, writing these things down. Is there anyone that would like more time to think on this one? All right, so of the things you thought of or wrote down, pick one of them and think for a moment and jot down a few notes and reflect on what it would feel like and mean to you if you could fulfill on that, if you could actually accomplish it. What would that feel like? What would it mean to you? Just write for a half a minute or so. Everybody had a chance to think about that a bit and write something down, or they want more, anybody want more time? Okay, so just keep that in mind, because I got inspired to do this talk about volition, but then I really realized how impactful it can be in your life if you understand some of these mechanisms. So the real point is to leverage the things we learn in Buddhism or otherwise to make a difference in our lives. So pay attention maybe through the hour and see, are you picking up anything that might help you accomplish the things that you'd like to? So again, my name's Ellen Wolfe. I'm a student of Lama Jinpa's, and I've been here for a bit. And I think I first got inspired about this talk by reading this little book called the Abhidharma Kosha that some of you have had to read too. It's actually quite thick. And they raised this volition term in there and talked about it. And I was like, wow, I don't really know about that. But also, I'll save another reason why I was motivated to do this talk. But first, a little poll. And we might need the mic for this to run around. I don't know how you feel about running around. Anybody willing to offer their sense of what volition means? And I know Dirk's still on. He's got to leave. But Dirk, you can't say because you helped me look this up. So just off the top of your head, what do you think it means?
Willpower.
Willpower. Okay.
Like motivational intention.
Motivational intention. I guess I could repeat them, but who else? Everybody must have some sense, or say, I have no idea what this means, and that's why I go here.
Strong intention combined with a practicable plan.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Well, all the other things plus enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm. So some oomph to it, maybe, huh? Charlotte.
I'm with Doug, everything that's been said, and having community supports / structural intervention that make your volition possible.
Okay, it's good. Anybody online want to jot down in the chat? We could have Eli read them off, or one of us could read them off. Anybody else? Venture guess or any other ideas that haven't been said? Okay, interesting. Agency. Well, that's good. I think I have that word somewhere in this talk. So agency. All right. So here's another thing that got me motivated to do this talk. And I don't know how I connected one with the other, but have any of you ever seen Lama go, what's this? It's like this. And the longer I've been coming here, it's like the fewer words he uses when he does this. He just does this. And somehow we're supposed to know what we're supposed to get out of him doing that, or at least even know what the koan is that he's posing for us. But for some reason, I connected volition with this. And this thing is, I'm glad he's not online, is he? I'm glad he's not here, because it always does frustrate me a little bit. It's like people are coming here trying to figure out this whole Buddhism thing, and you're doing this and having people supposed to know what it means. But somehow I connected volition with this, and I've always wanted to understand this. So that's the other thing that motivated me to do this. He kind of means like, how does this happen? I think maybe he's said that before. So I don't know, maybe you all got that instantly, how that happens, and then you could trade the mic with me and you could do this talk, but that's my motivation. I have several sources, primarily as discussions with Rinpoche. There's not a whole lot written that I've found on actually volition. In this Abhidharma Kosha, there's some things, but if you try to like Google Buddhist texts and volition, you get very little. Now, ChatGPT did help me a bit, but they don't, there's not like a book that you can order off of Amazon that's a volition in Buddhism. There's just not very much written down. What did fascinate me is once I decided to do this, and it was a while ago, and then other things I started reading or hearing or in the news or what are the feel-good pieces had a similar feel to them. So I think this idea is not strictly a Buddhist idea. The thing I love about Buddhism is when you find truths in Buddhism, they exist in other places. So some of my sources are more secular sources and so forth that I'll read from, and I'll tell you what they are as I go. So I was going to talk about volition a little bit and then actions that result from volition, because I think that's where you get the power in your life to accomplish those things that you wrote down that maybe you want to actually act on. And I don't know if you've noticed this either, but Lama Jinpa's been pretty hot on lately, talking about action, taking action. He's even used the word volition, but, you know, to take steps, to actually jump off the diving board, that sort of thing. So I think he's interested in this topic. I'll talk about some of the definitional aspects of volition. I think they're pretty interesting. And then a number of examples, as I said, from some Buddhist sources and some non-Buddhist sources. Okay, so I have some slides, Eli, that's your cue. And so this is the boring part if you need to go to the bathroom or you got a text to answer. But no, to be honest, the reason I did these slides is some of the stuff I thought was kind of heady. And not only did I not want to memorize it, but I thought maybe somebody would want this as a takeaway. So if you want this, then find me after and I'll get your email and I can send it to you. So I'm just going to read from some of these. So this one's from a very technical source, the first one. Eli, if you would flip to the next slide. Dictionary.com. So for those of you that offered a definition, it's a noun, the act of willing, which I think is an interesting attribute, choosing or resolving, the exercise of willing, as in she left of her own volition. So choice or discretion. Now this, I mean, I read this definition, I'm like, holy cow, I had no idea. Like you can actually will something into existence. And this is in the dictionary. You know, if I would have read this 20 years ago and believed it, I mean, that's pretty trippy, I think, that you can will things into happening. A choice or decision made by the will. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because I've been doing this a while, studying this, but it gives me goosebumps to think you can actually will things into happening, or the power of willing, will. So it's kind of cool. It's not just saying I will do, you know, I'm going to start walking around the block. It's like there's something there. Okay, next slide. Please, Eli. Okay, in Buddhism, volition or intention is generally understood as a mental phenomenon rather than something that resides physically within or outside the body. Here's some key points. It's a mental factor. This is from the Abhidharma Kosha. Volition is viewed as a mental factor, part of the mind's processes. It is, I added the underlying, associated with the arising of thoughts and intentions that influence behavior, but it does not have a physical form or location. So you can't just decide, you know, it's not the same as just deciding something. Oh, I'm going to be fit. This year, New Year's resolution, I'm going to be fit. It's not like a brain thing. It doesn't even exist. Interdependence. In Buddhist philosophy, especially in the context of the doctrine of dependent origination, volition is seen as arising from a complex interplay of mental habits, experiences, and external conditions. It is influenced by various factors, including past actions, karma, emotions, and environmental stimuli. So there's really a lot going on here. Okay, Eli. Continued. Number 3, mind-body connection. While volition itself is a mental aspect, it significantly influences physical actions. Thus, while it does not reside within the body in a physical sense, it is closely linked to the body in terms of how intentions manifest in actions. Now, come on. It doesn't exist anywhere in here, but it makes this happen. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I think it's cool. Consciousness. In Buddhist teachings, particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, consciousness is often discussed as an ongoing flow that encompasses volitional aspects. This consciousness can interact with the body and the external environment. Now, how does it do that? I think that's interesting too, but is fundamentally a part of the mental continuum. You don't look impressed, Daniel. In summary, volition is considered a mental activity that arises from consciousness and is not located strictly within or outside the body. Instead, it exists as part of a broader relationship between the mind, body, and the environment. Who had any idea? Maybe you did, I don't know. Okay, I think this is the last one. I told you it was the boring part. Number 5. Okay, thank you, Dirk, for your Sanskrit. Santana, or maybe Santana, if he's still there, he could say. It's a Sanskrit term, recognized also in Theravada Buddhism. Oops, I left off the M. And it's a mental, it basically is what volition is in Sanskrit, a mental factor that prompts the mind to take notice of an object, serving as a link between the mind and the object. So something's going on and it's a connection between your mind and that object. From the Abhidharma Kosha, volition, Cetanā, is a mental factor and is considered one of the most significant mental states. It can be defined as a mental factor that moves or urges the mind in a particular direction towards a specific object or goal. So its characteristic equals the state of willing. Its function is accumulating karma. Its manifestation is coordinating, and its proximate cause for the techies, Abhidharma Kosha techies in the room, the associated states and the states needed to do the tasks. So this volition helps to accomplish the things that we're going to act on. Cetanā is a mental activity that propels the mind forward. It has the function of making the mind settle on what is positive, negative, or indeterminate. So just some definitional activities or information, sorry. So as in the Abhidharma Kosha, from which some of this came, volition, it's not just karmic maturation, but primarily as a result of consciousness. So we have this consciousness and volition results from it. So with respect to the arm movement, the Abhidharma Kosha says the movement of the body, limbs, for example, it's not generated by thinking move. You just don't just think move, but rather it's instinctively from the intention to move. So I guess those are two different qualities. So Lama says that to move the arm, or say, do anything, or stop doing something that's destructive, you don't figure out how to stop. You just stop. You know, so there's more going on than just thinking about stuff. Lama says, when the interest is strong enough, you'll slip over the edge and do it, meaning take the associated action when your interest is strong enough. And the Abhidharma Kosha similarly says the body changes to the way intention focuses on it. So there's something going on with our consciousness that, you know, causes this arm to move. So I wanted to interject one sort of kind of secular, but I think it's a very parallel application. There's a researcher, Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz. He's a psychiatrist that is a researcher at the UCLA School of Medicine. And he specializes in obsessive compulsive disorders and treating people with obsessive compulsive disorders. And what he's found is that while following therapy that he's developed, his patients were affecting significant lasting changes in their own neural pathways. He says it's a scientific first, by actively focusing their attention away from destructive behaviors towards more positive ones, they're using their mind to reshape their tendencies away from those behaviors. So just by the focus of the attention. And he's written a book. I keep most of my books on Kindle, so sorry I don't have something fun to show you. It's called The Mind and Brain, and it talks about these kind of relationships, Jeffrey Schwartz, and I wanted to read something from it. He says, our will, our volition, our karma constitutes the essential core of the active part of mental experience. It is the most important, if not the only important, active part of consciousness. We generally think of will as being expressed in the behaviors we exhibit, whether we choose this path or that one, whether we make this decision or that. Even when will is viewed introspectively, we often conceptualize it in terms of an externally pursued goal. But I think the truly important manifestation of will, the one from which our decisions and behaviors flow, is the choice we make about the quality and direction of attentional focus. Mindful or unmindful, wise or unwise, no choice we make is more basic. So when we put our attention on something, it directs our activity, probably whether we know it or not. I think it's pretty cool. I wanted to share something from another talk. I don't know if anybody knows who David Wallace is. He was a philosopher and he studied literature and philosophy, eventually dropped out of Harvard's philosophy PhD program to write. And he wrote a number of essays and plays, some fiction. He did one speech. He did a commencement speech at a college that I don't know of, Kenyan college, on this subject of choosing. And it ended up getting turned into a little book called This is Water. So there are a couple of things I'm going to read from this book. It's available. You can buy it. It's got sort of a transcript of this speech. So he made this speech in 2005. And there were several lessons in the speech, and a couple of them I pulled out, and here's one of them. He says, you get to choose what you worship. There's no such thing as not worshiping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. If you worship money and things, if they are where you tap real meaning in life, then you will never have enough. Never feel you have enough. Worship your body and beauty and sexual allure, and you will always feel ugly. Worship power, and you'll end up feeling weak and afraid, and you'll need even more power over others to numb you to your own fear. Worship your intellect, being seen as smart, you will end up feeling stupid, a fraud, always on the verge of being found out. He says the insidious thing about these forms of worship is not that they're evil or sinful, it's that they're unconscious. They're default settings. They're the kind of worship you just gradually slip into day after day, getting more and more selective about what you see and how you measure value without ever being fully aware that that's what you're doing. When you slip blindly into a worship of these cultural defaults, money, material things, power, status, you will never feel free. True freedom comes from choice, the ability to choose your worship, to choose how you measure value, to live by design and not default. You get to choose what you worship, he says. So basically what we're paying attention to is what's directing our activities in life. And a lot of what we're paying attention to, we probably don't even realize we've chosen to pay attention to it. So in addition to Cetanā, the Sanskrit word for volition, there's a Sanskrit word, Synchronicity. It adds krita to the end of Cetanā. And that means, krita means taking action. So it essentially means volition-inspired actions. And that's really what we're interested about when we write down things that we want to do, that we're not really finding a way to do them, or we want to understand how this happens. It's not just the volition, but it's the follow-on action from the volition. So Cetanā-kṛta refers to phenomena or actions that are produced by intention or created by volition. I think it's really interesting then, this movement of the hand. So it's not just volition, but it's the result of volition. It's Cetanā-kṛta. Cetanā-kṛta designates things that arise or occur due to intentional mental activity, distinguishing them from phenomena that are not the result of conscious intention. So Cetanā-kṛta means intentionally produced and is central to understanding how karma operates. In Buddhist philosophy, for example, since only actions done with intention are considered karmically significant. So if you just do something and you're not thinking about it, it's not really a karmic action. But if you intend to do something and then you do something, it is a karmic action. So the intention is so key, and these are so connected. So if you think about the significance of this, it highlights the centrality of intention in Buddhism. every act derives its transformational power from intention. If you don't have an intention behind your actions, then it doesn't really do anything karmically. With volition, our activities are not just passive actions, they're actually intentional actions that have a lot more significant effect, shapes karma, actions, and habits. Does that make sense? Any questions so far or reflections? Otherwise, I'm going to add one more facet to this. But first, a little test. Who thinks they're understanding this volition bit so far? Oh, good. Because I need a subject for an experiment. Thank you, Daniel. Let's stand up. Okay. So let's see. How can we do this? Maybe we got to show this. Everybody's got to be able to see. Okay. Let's see. You stand here. And you're going to do this arm thing because you think you get it. Volition.
Got it.
Okay. And you want to do it in slow-mo so that everybody can really see what's going on. You're going to go from out here to somewhere over here. All right. When I say go, are you ready? Okay. Okay. Go for it. Uh-oh. What happened? Something.
Causes and conditions weren't sufficient.
Okay, something about some of it. The cause was probably okay, but something else, right? You can't just have volition and take action. There's more to it than that. Thank you. Everybody clap for Dan. Excellent, excellent. So, you can have these great intentions, you can decide to act, but really the environment has a lot to do with how well it's going to play out. And I think it's part that's really powerful as well. So Lama talks about the fact that volition involves agency. Were you the agency? I think you added agency to this. He says karma is not deterministic. It involves agency, the capacity to act and how we set intentions to act in a manner and have control over our lives and actions. So the environment has a lot to do with this. Karma and agency to which the Lama are referring rely on these conditions. Isn't that what you said? Causes and conditions. Karma should not just be spoken of in terms of causes alone. And in fact, Lama says it's one place in which the Abhidharma Kosha falls short a little bit. It just talks about all these, definitions, causes. It doesn't talk about the greater environment in which we're operating. Lama says that because conditions depend on the environment, volition is also related to Tantra, because Tantra is all about sort of feeling out the space, right? What's going on. It's more than just inside and outside causes. It's like a whole system that's moving that we're part of. So tapping into that's important. There's a distinction between a personal self and this greater interconnected system. So it has a lot to do with how we, operate in this system as to whether our actions produce the results that we want. Lama says that usually the personal self is dominant, but the personal self and Buddha nature come together in volition. So you can't just operate in your own little, I want this to happen. And I used to be called by somebody in my family a bull in a china shop when I wanted something. And I think maybe that's the personal self being dominant. Lama says it's the whole system integration that has to pop at the same time. Our intention, our action, and this integration. And we're usually disconnected from the phrase he used is energy grid. We're like not feeling it, what's going on around us. Nyingma text, Lama says, talk about spontaneity or spontaneous volition. And spontaneously fits this situation very well because you got to keep adjusting, right? Things aren't stagnant. He says if we approach it from interdependence, we're going to get the answer we need, but it also requires deep introspection. Part of it is that our minds and body are synchronized, and part of it is that we're just noticing that things are working out. And I haven't heard this necessarily in the last day or two, but often Lama will say, everything's working out. He'll always point to what is working out. So Trungpa Rinpoche was big on environment. He often referred to it as mandala. And one of his books, Ordinary Chaos, I don't know if some of you have read it, speaks to this a lot. So I pulled a couple of bits from that. In that book, he talks about environment as mandala, friends and enemies, etc. He says, as Buddhists, the whole thing we are trying to do is approach an area that actually nobody wants to get into. People try to run away from it all the time, and in that way have created samsara. As long as we are on the path and practicing and developing, we are doing this impossible thing, approaching that thing that people have been rejecting for millions of years, exploring it. He's talking about this mysterious interconnected space. About the mandala, Trungpa Rinpoche says, the point is that one sees the totality, the whole area. One begins to have an extraordinary panoramic vision with no boundaries. One can afford to associate with particular energies, particular directions, because one's working situation is not based on a sense of direction anymore. He also says there's an element of accommodation and there's also an element of vastness. Here, accommodation becomes energetic because accommodation is allowing a space to develop or allowing things to develop within a space. Accommodation is the aspect of efficiency. The other aspect of space is a kind of acceptance, the quality of letting things expand to their fullest extent. The karmic sense to this is the sense of believing in automatic fulfillment. There is the sense that things are already being fulfilled. It's fascinating, but sort of trippy phraseology he uses. Is Dirk still here? Did he have a leave? Okay. He told me about this book. This is a fascinating book. Eli, for somebody interested in Dzogchen, this is a good book. It's called The Trackless Path by Ken McLeod. I think it's relatively new. Ken McLeod found out about a text. He was given a text by somebody with whom he went on retreat, by Jigme Lingpa, and he translated it, and then he wrote a commentary, and it's in this book, and it's really cool. So I just wanted to pull one little verse from it, verse 2.4. I could read the whole verse, but I'll just read the first little stanza. Because I am free from the thinking that distorts experience, the evolution, the evolution of good and evil ends completely. Okay, and then he writes a page and a half of commentary, and I'll give you a little of that. He says, this first couplet is talking about karma. Karma is a description of how thoughts, words, and actions evolve into experienced results. And that's what we're talking about, right? How your intention actually gets acted into existence. The idea that Buddhas or bodhisattvas are somehow free of karma led to the theological question that Buddhists have debated. It goes on. But there's a little koan in here. A Buddha is one with karma. And what does that mean exactly? So he says in his commentary, our thoughts, words, and actions grow into how we experience our lives. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? A more contemporary metaphor might be evolution in complex adaptive systems, but the point remains the same. Thoughts, words, and actions evolve into patterns of thinking and acting that shape how we experience the world and predispose, but not determine, how we are likely to act. So just what we're paying attention to influences how we're likely to act. What then are we to make of Jigme Lingpa's statement, the evolution of good and evil ends completely? So he goes back to that koan about a Buddha that's one with karma. This statement means that when we're awake and present, we live precisely in balance with the dynamics and processes that shape the world in which we live. To be one with karma is to know and respond to the different pulls and pushes we experience in our lives, moment to moment. It's an intimate dance with what is and has nothing to do with transcending or ignoring what we experience. So we have these intentions, but we just are then navigating this world as it evolves. Okay. All right, so just a couple more shares I was going to make, and then we'll wrap up and have some discussion. So one other little bit from David Wallace's speech. And it's called This is Water because of the little koan. And I think this exists elsewhere about fish swimming. So two little fish are swimming along, two young little fish, and then an old fish comes the other direction. And the old fish says, "Hi, fellas, how's the water?" And they swim past, and then one little fish says to the other little fish, "What the hell's water?" So it's the koan. And what he says about this is the most important realities hide in plain sight. Our beliefs, our assumptions, our understandings, our defaults. They shape our entire reality without us even realizing that they exist. The whole trick is keeping the truth up front in daily consciousness. Life is a game of awareness and action. Awareness to understand something's importance and action to execute on that importance. But one-time awareness is never enough. You may know something in a moment, but if you don't know it in the moment, it's impossible to act on it. The most important realities hide in plain sight. Shine a light on them. You know, so this being in tune with our environment is super, super powerful. Okay, one more analogy. It's from Iceland, or about Icelanders' ways of being. And I've never been there. Has anybody ever been to Iceland? Oh, you have. Supposed to be the happiest people on earth. Is that your experience? There weren't very many. Oh, maybe that's why they're happy. They have space. But experts and thought leaders think it's thanks to this thing called innsæi. Did you hear about innsæi when you were there? No. It's INNSAEI. I hope I'm saying it right. And I definitely won't say this right, but according to this author, thought leader, Icelander Hund, it's a woman, Hund Gunsteinsdotter. Anyway, if you want to know, I'll spell it for you. She's a thought leader. She went to Harvard and Yale and then the London School of Economics and Political Science, and she writes pieces now. This innsæi has three meanings. One, the sea as in ocean within. So the ocean within. Two, to see within. And three, to see from the inside out. She said, when you have innsæi, you have a strong compass that enables you to navigate the ocean of life and the world we live in. It is said that with innsæi, one can see what we usually can't see and hear what we usually can't hear. It's a much needed superpower, according to Hrund. She says, the sea within conjures up the borderless nature of our inner world. It's constantly moving and making new connections. It's a world of vision, feelings, and imagination, and it cannot be put into boxes or silos because then it ceases to flow. To see within is to know yourself well enough to witness your own creativity, core beliefs, and humanity, including your imperfections, strengths, biases, fears, and vulnerabilities. When you see within, you're able to put yourself in other people's shoes and make connections that constantly regenerate you. And finally, to see from the inside out is to be aligned with your inner compass. In a world full of uncertainty, opportunities, speed, and ceaseless attempts to hijack our attention, a strong inner compass gives you clarity, focus, and resilience. And then she talks about ways to harness innsæi, like seeing strangers as messengers. You know, you pass somebody and something about it, them click with you. Taking unexpected physical or mental routes, you know, taking the long path. Widening your attention span rather than being overly planned and prescriptive. That's a good lesson for me. And most importantly, to notice what you feel the most. So intuition kind of. She sees innsæi as an inner muscle that the more we practice, the better we become at it. And so I think these parallels apply to volition. Okay, so just like bring it all back together. We talked about volition, Cetanā, and Cetanā-kṛta, actions that result from volition. the bigger aspect of it, like it doesn't just exist here, you know, and it doesn't even just exist here. It's like, it's weird. It's not even in the body. It doesn't even have a physical presence. And that the environment, and the last little bit of this is the environment has a really strong effect on how things play out, and to be attuned with our environment. The more we can get attuned with it, the more we can affect these actions. So, okay, you all look like ready to fall asleep. I'm sure it's just the heat. It has nothing to do with what I've talked about. But think back to what you wrote down. You know, the thing, especially the thing you wrote that would be meaningful for you to accomplish. And just take a minute and see if there's anything from this discussion that can inform that, you know, that makes you feel a little bit more able, ready, or have some new ideas about how to approach things that you care about in your life in a more complete way or different way. Oh, can we? Doesn't matter. Just takeaways that are important for you.
Well, for me, it's action, because I'm being exposed to the Dharma and starting the meditations, and I'm endeavoring to read the prayers out loud when the sun comes up. So that one is pretty wonderful. But I've wanted to do mosaics since I retired, and I have all the supplies, and I've moved 3 times, and I keep like perfecting all of the supplies and the ideas, and I'll start to draw ideas, but I haven't put a stone down yet. So for me, it's, you know, make one.
Lama's leap, it sounds like. Leap to action. Who else either wants to share? There's one in the back, Daniel. Back.
Thank you so much. That was, I don't know if you saw any feedback from me, but I'm really hungry and I haven't been taking great care of myself. So don't take that as an indicator. This was by far my favorite talk here.
Oh,
but
we get points.
Yeah, I like the concept of volition. I'm kind of breaking away from an organization that talked about will as like a really maybe potentially bad thing. And I think I almost lost my own volition for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of like, I like that power. Like, yes, we need to like straighten ourselves out and like realize how we're using it, but there is so much truth in like where our attention is and like how we're kind of goal oriented, etc. So I don't have that much to say, but I did just really want to thank you. It was a very, very good topic.
Well, I'm glad, especially if you reconnected with something that used to be useful to you and you've lost. And there are muffins in the kitchen afterwards too, if you're hungry.
Thanks, Helen. Such an important talk. I don't know. I've on and off, I've been a personal trainer a few times, and watching clients and people in the gym wrestle with how to create healthy habits around eating and exercising has been really interesting. And what I've seen is that there seems to be an idea of willpower as a type of real like hammer type force, right? That like really pushes, and a lot of times it's motivated by a lot of discontentment with self. And so that will in the beginning can work really well, but it tends to have like a snapback effect. So they'll start showing up. The process is not enjoyable in any way for them. They're really hard on themselves. And then eventually they kind of like go in the other direction. Like they almost have to retreat from their own willpower, trying to find some middle ground. So like when you were speaking about all of this, I loved how you were talking about like, well, like just thinking about like, where do we put our awareness? And then what's the quality of that awareness? Because it seems like if the quality of that awareness is very forceful or aggressive, we're going to end up having a lot of resistance and difficulty. And it also made me think of shamatha meditation, right? Where that's actually what we're practicing, is like, how do we gain this quality of awareness that's awake and balanced? It's not like overly aggressive or overly lax. So, thank you. I really appreciate all the tie-ins.
Totally. I mean, it sounds like the work that Schwartz does on OCD, you know, by getting people to focus on other activities that are positive in nature, and not like saying, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't. It's just like, oh, I could do this. And they focus on something positive. It actually reprograms their brain. It's incredible. Matthew's got a phone.
Yeah, just to wrap back with what you're saying, what I've seen work is when people actually just like try to find joy in working out. So I'm like, hey, if you don't like lifting weights, you can play basketball.
Yeah.
You know, like there is other options.
Yeah. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Ellen. You're such a good teacher. I always learn from you, and I love how you do it.
I think I just picked topics that you like, Andrew, but
Maybe we just vibe. I think we do.
Yeah.
I always pick up stuff and give it to other people. So thank you. I think it was when you were talking about innsæi, being fully present with what you're feeling, I think.
Mhm.
I started thinking about feeling and how that feels like an X factor in all of this. Like, it's one thing to want something or think about, I want to go in this direction, but I think feeling is so much what prevents us. It's like we ping pong away from a feeling that we don't like, right? Ambivalence. I want this, but I feel the feeling is not something that's so as conscious for us as the thought, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about what you learned about, or your thoughts on how does feeling play into volition when we're present with something that we want, but this feeling comes up that it's karma, past experience, that stops us dead in our tracks in an instinctual way, like the way that trauma stops someone from going forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think being in touch with it, and maybe it's part of like Trungpa Rinpoche's bit of, it's like this whole space that we avoid because we don't want to experience that, you know, but we have to kind of dive into it. But I think the other distinction is that it's not the thought patterns. All this stuff is not the thought patterns. So a lot of, I think, when you say feeling, we get an emotional reaction, right? But then we go to all this like spinny thinking about it, and the judgment, especially the negative stuff. That's all thinking, and that's not where the power is in this. So that's a distraction, I think, away from our awareness. So I don't know. I mean, the takeaways I have from it is, yeah, being in touch with like your inner guidance, but in a positive way, you know, where you send your positive attention. And it's not the old reels of thought that spin around and around. That just takes away from the power. But I don't know how to tell somebody to stop doing it, you know? That's your job.
I haven't read the book, but it's feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's something in volition about, I think this is part of what you're getting at, is what are you attending to?
Right.
If you attend to the visceral, then you're going to fail, if that makes sense.
Hi, Ellen. Thank you
Hi.
for your talk.
You're welcome.
So it was funny on the way down here, I was listening to a talk by a physicist called Tom Campbell. And similar to this topic of innsæi, he was talking about, in my words, intuitive consciousness and the power of that. And I feel kind of what we were just talking about right here is this idea that we tend to get really caught up in thinking and in our head. And that's where kind of like, I think Matthew was talking about, we get forceful, right? Got to do this, and this will happen, and that will happen. And rather than kind of relaxing into this shamatha state where we're allowing our consciousness, the intuitive component of our consciousness, to help us understand, make decisions, speak to us regarding our volition. Do you know what I mean? And I think in listening to this and listening on the way here to that talk, it just confirms for me the importance of sometimes getting out of your head and allowing other information to emerge. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that was surprising to me that none of this really resides in your brain. None of it.
One of the things I've found is that I am frequently trapped in English, in specifically my own formations around what a word means, what a phrase means, and bringing up Cetanā, I'm wondering how important it is to be able to learn Sanskrit or other Eastern languages in order to actually understand these things, because I can go in circles with Western authors writing in English and I don't get clarity. I'm throwing that out there for anyone who may have a perspective.
Well, I think if Dirk were here, he would tell you that he's really enjoyed learning Sanskrit. I mean, I think they at least learn the words that are like that pop up as being sort of linchpins in these things we're doing. Yeah, I'm trying to learn Tibetan for the same reason, because I want to really understand what it is that was meant when it was originally spoken or taught or something. So I think so, but I mean, it takes time. So got to choose your battles too. Yeah. Other people in the room, or I know there's some chats, Eli, that I haven't read. I don't know if anybody online wants to say anything. More points. Good. Points are good. Okay. He had to leave. Oh, good. Cetanā. Ah, a whole hour and roll it back. Cetanā-kṛta. I know. I would have liked to ask him to pronounce it, but anything else from the chat? No. Okay, Daniel.
I'm glad that I'm not the only one who got like really frustrated with Rinpoche's arm movements.
Anybody else been kind of like baffled by that one? Nobody tell him we had this conversation. Okay.
Do we get points if we tattle though?
No.
Okay.
Negative points, Dan.
All right. One of the things I really appreciated about what you were saying is that this sort of need for spaciousness around it. It's easy to see volition as like what Matthew was saying and some others. It's this like tight kind of I want this, and it's very narrowly focused on a me and an object out there. And I remember reading this book about willpower one time, where one of the critical sort of components was there's more to it. You know, like you want to write that book. Great. But there's more to it, right? There's something else that you have to formulate ideas. You have to get out a pen and paper. You have to, there's subtasks. There's a lot more to it. And when we think about like Rinpoche's sort of idea, this making the dive, right? I was thinking about, I went on a whitewater rafting trip as part of the Sangha community here. And one aspect of that was there were these really high jumps off of like cliffs into, like kind of crazy wild water, right? And if it was just me by myself, I might have the desire. I'd be like, man, it would be so cool to jump off of that rock into that river, but I would never, ever, ever in a million years do it alone, right? But when I had the desire for it, but the conditions weren't sufficient. I didn't feel safe. I didn't, the thoughts are like, oh no, I'm gonna die, that kind of thing. But with the right sort of supportive environment, there's river guides there. I can see other people have made the leap before me, that type of thing, right? I'm like, oh, I can do it. I will do it. I want to do it, and then could do it,
Wow.
right? And I couldn't help but think that that's a lot like sort of the way that our Sangha, our community is as well, right? That it operates in the same sort of way where everybody wants to make the leap, but we don't know how to make the leap. We don't feel safe making the leap. We don't feel supported. We're worried about what's going to happen, right? All those thoughts, all those worries, which are legitimate, and then to be able to see if we can get a little bit of space, and it's not just such a collapsed little, just me doing this alone, right? That it's actually part of this bigger mandala effect. I thought that aspect of what you were talking about was really quite critical, valuable. Thank you.
You're welcome. One of the things I love the most about this practice is the magic in it. I mean, has anybody else ever touched into the magic of Buddhism? I have a story I want to share, just a personal story. Oh, you go ahead. Okay. So my older son and his wife wanted a dachshund hound. They live at Lotus View Ranch. Some of you have been there, and they're gophers. So they have this, idea, we'll get a dachshund hound. It'll hunt the gophers. It'll be great. And they had lost their dog, and my son had lost his cat. And well, try to get a dog these days. You got to get on a list for like 2 years ahead. You got to pay $2,000. You got to fly to Idaho. It's not easy to get a dog, and they're not rich people. They just work on a ranch, doing stuff. And then they found out that my daughter-in-law is pregnant. Okay, so now they're going to have a baby. They didn't have a dog land in their lap, so they sort of scrapped the idea of dachshund hound. So one day they were over in my neighborhood, and I have a neighbor that has a plum tree, and we're kind of like this in our neighborhood. I got plums. Anybody want plums? So I said, oh, my kids are coming. They like plums. So she invited us over. We got plums. And then they took the plums home, and they made jam. And then I was out there having dinner one night with my family, and he said, hey, look at the jam I made. I said, oh, you have a lot of those? Because I could take one of those and I could take it to Julia. Wouldn't that be cool? She gave you so then he gives me the jam, and I text Julia, are you guys home? I like to drop off this jam. So I drop off this jam. So I have this saying now, it's all about the jam, because I just happened to think, she just happened to invite us for jam or plums, and they just happened to make the jam, and I just happened to see it, and I just happened to think of her, and I just happened to take it to them. So 3 or 4 days later, she texts me. She said, are your kids still looking for a dachshund hound? Because I heard of this 5-month-old dachshund hound puppy, and the aunt had an accident and it needs to be rehomed. Are they interested? And it turned out the story it was like her daughter's husband's aunt, supposedly. And my kids called her. And she had no idea who this guy was. It was like, and the story was completely wrong. But they met the dog, and they got a 5-month-old dachshund hound, and his name is Coney Dog. And he's pretty good about digging for gophers. And, it's just like the magic of that happened. And they weren't going to do it because they got this, other baby thing coming. But now they have a dog, and it just worked out, just that magic. And I say it's all about the jam. But maybe if I hadn't brought her the jam, she wouldn't remember that my kids were looking for a dog. It's just the magic. Yeah. So I'm with you. The magic is like, you got to tap into the magic to make it worth sitting there for 24 minutes every single day. It's like, I think. Anyway, what were you going to say, Jen?
Kind of along the same lines. It was really funny in one of our meetings this morning. Somebody was going to share a quote that was exactly what somebody else had shared. Exactly.
Wow.
The same quote. You're like, it's like being struck by lightning. And then I shared that I was listening to this song on the way to grab a cup of coffee. And it's like a Ray LaMontagne song. Just very random, kind of old on my own Pandora station, not even a walk into Starbucks, the same song is playing.
I know.
And they're like, yeah, it's crazy, blah, blah, blah. And it made me think that sort of like dreamlike state. But it also made me think of the thing that you were saying about space, and there not being really right in space, there aren't really points. So you don't have an up or down or sideways, northeast kind of direction. No, that direction. So it's just, and how does that, when you think about volition and agency, we often think of this as a sort of that willpower. I want this thing to happen. But if there's no direction and it's spontaneous and you're considering the whole environment around you, you're not really, it brings into to my mind, it makes me question who or what is actually making decisions. And we're not acting necessarily from oneself, for that sort of like from my side, but for that interdependence is really the thing that's moving things one way or another. I don't know.
Totally, I totally agree. If you can ride that interdependence thing, that sort of magic, sort of like world, tap into that. It is so fun. It's so, and if things work out. I totally agree. Totally. Shall we wrap? Oh, good. Yeah. Because I love his accent.
So, is my understanding that the rules of the universe are universal. However, instead of choosing to be in the realm of non-form and infinite possibility, we've chosen to be in a realm of form, linear time, and the Four Noble Truths. For whatever reason, I guess we're gluttons for punishment. But the rule of intention still applies in both realms. However, you were talking about the arm swing and obstacles. So one way to leap forward from that is in a meditative state, obviously. Concentrate on the now, step into the realm of formless and infinite possibility, and see yourself having achieved what you intend to achieve, and then feel the feeling or the experience of having achieved it, then let it go and watch the synchronicity in your life. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. So
Totally.
practice.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I just want to thank you for that. Speaking of synchronicity, it's like every time I come in here and listen to anybody say one word, I feel like it's been meant for me somehow,
I did it for you.
Thank you. I know you did. I appreciate that immensely. I'll give you the $5 later. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's just how I felt about your whole lecture, and put me on your list, because I always have to have it in writing.
Okay. Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. If anybody wants these slides, that's what she's talking about. Yeah. You do. Okay. Anybody else? Are we ready to go get in our car and turn on the air conditioner? Okay, please do the hard part. Thank you, Daniel, for doing the hard part.
Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. May the teachings of the Buddha flourish, and may the upholders of the teachings remain forever. May all migrators achieve happiness, and may they fulfill all their temporary and ultimate goals. Low Song, magical display of the deep awareness of all the victorious ones, merciful giver of a stream of profound and vast instructions to the fortunate migrators, please remain always, unperishing, unchanging, unfading. Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of objectless compassion. Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom. Vajrapani, destroyer of the entire host of Maras. Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the snowy land sages. Losang Drakpa, I make request at your holy feet.
I have one announcement. I don't know if other people have others, but some really cool authors are coming here on September 10th. It's a Wednesday. So if you're used to coming to the regular Wednesday meditation, just come because it's going to be in place of that. And their name are Joel and Michelle Levy. Fantastic people. They live in Seattle. They're deep, deep practitioners, but they've done a lot of applied work out in the world, military, medical system. And they like to bring in all sorts of indigenous learnings. And they're just super cool people. And they've written a new book. And so they're going on retreat in the Sierras, and then they're going to stop by here and do a book talk and signing that day. So if you can make it, it'll be online too. And if you think you might be interested in a book, you can sign up on Eventbrite and buy a book, or otherwise let me know so we make sure we get enough books here. So that's my announcement. And of course, we can always use money. So if you just like won the lottery yesterday and have a bunch, you can leave it in that box or see Jen. Anybody else have announcements? Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for your attention. Have a great day. Hi to the people online too.
Omo araya pasaya